The Switch 2 has the potential to become the greatest Pokemon console of all time. And I know that's a very bold statement, but I have three factors, two that are current right now, and one that could be something that comes in the near future. So hear me out. The first topic that we will discuss is backwards compatibility. With game development taking years and years for a single game release to come out, backwards compatibility is more important than ever. It gives us an opportunity to dive into some games that we love and get those meaningful performance improvements behind them. Like when Scarlet and Violet came out, as much as I wanted to love that game, the performance on the Switch 1 was just so bad that I could just remember being frustrated from the loading menus in that game, let alone the choppiness of the graphics. It was definitely a very tough game to enjoy. I somehow managed to sink over 200 hours into that game, which in retrospect, after diving back in on the Switch 2, I'm like, how did I do that? The Switch 1 was already a really good Pokemon console. It's actually the reason I dived back into Nintendo games. I spent most of my adulthood emulating them on Samsung phones until I realized I can actually afford a Switch. So I went and bought it, and my first game on the Switch was Sword and Shield, and I immediately fell down that rabbit hole. Got Let's Go Pikachu, and I've got every single Pokemon game that released on the Switch, at least all the mainline ones. Since the Switch 2 came out day one, inheriting that whole catalog, in my opinion, already catapulted up to top tier Nintendo consoles when it comes to Pokemon games. Like we have Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, Let's Go Pikachu, Diamond and Pearl re-releases, Legends Arceus, Legends ZA on the Switch 1 as well. So the Switch 1 already is cemented. Now, backwards compatibility, again, is more important than ever. We're not getting winds and waves for another year at least. So being able to revisit older games with a fresh new take, in my opinion, is more important now than ever, especially with just game development taking so long. Looking at you, GTA 6. Reason number two is Pokemon Pokopia. Don't get out of the video just yet. Hear me out. Now, this was a game I did not expect to like as much as I do. I might even say that Pokemon Pokopia is a more important game for the Switch 2 than Legends ZA, because one, obviously, it's not available on the Switch 1, but in my opinion, it's just such a great game that I would consider it a console-worthy purchase. If you don't have a Switch 2 and you're on the fence, you're reading all these things about Pokemon Pokopia and you think it might be for you, it's certainly, without a doubt, worth the plunge. Because if you're also into Pokemon games, then you also get that backwards compatibility. And Legends ZA is great on the Switch 2 as well. All the games really are. So it wouldn't be a purchase that you regret, even if you didn't love Pokopia as much as some of us. But let me just say, when that game first came out, I didn't even realize that it was a Switch 2 exclusive. I just saw the Ghibli style art, the Minecraft and Pokemon Horizons kind of hybridness, and I was like, oh, that's definitely a Switch systems type of game. But it wasn't until I started just seeing people comment on threads how is it worth getting the Switch 2, that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole on this video. And I was like, to all those comments I saw, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Now, I'll warn you, if you have chores or anything of value to be getting done, then that game is not for you, because you will spend way too much time. I think my first session, I sat on the couch for way too long. We don't need to talk numbers, just trust me, way too long. But it was such a good, refreshing experience. And no, I don't think for a second it could run on Switch. If you play the game and see how some of the permanent mechanics work within the game, they're definitely offloading a lot of things to RAM and SSD that I don't think for a sec the Switch 1 could handle it. And I'm okay with that. The Switch 1 is nearing what, 10 years old, it's okay that like Nintendo moves on for that console. They genuinely gave most of the good releases in 2025 on the Switch one. So again, it got a decent send off in my opinion, and it's well worth the upgrade. In fact, I am such a big fan of the Switch 2 that I've yet to dive even back into my OLED. Now, the colors on that screen are awesome, and I'm a huge fan of OLED screens in general, but the experience on the Switch 2 is just so much better that I rarely go back. And the HDR-ness of the screen is like very appealing to me in my opinion. My third and final reason for why I think the Switch 2 will go down in history as the best console to play Pokemon games on. And that is solely because of the re-release of Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, those were the games I grew up on. I wasn't old enough to play Red, so my first Pokemon game ever was Fire Red on a Game Boy Color. And the reason I love these games is the sense of adventure they give you. You're at home with your mom in a relatively small apartment, you get a Pokemon, and you go off on an adventure, fighting bad guys, catching legendaries. Like, I think that's why a lot of people still like Pokemon to this day, is that like just sense of freedom. You go out, you never know really what you're gonna get yourself into, when you'll be back, and before you know it, you're like level 100 Charizard and you're on top of the world, you know? So it's a big reason why I love the formula and why I go back to these games. But the re-release of Fire Red and Leaf Green caught my eyes because, one, it was something that as Pokemon fans, if you're a Pokemon fan on YouTube watching a video like this, then you know for years we've been getting, this is it, it's coming, re-releases, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Soul Silver, Black and White, they're coming, they're there. And every year it's like, I don't know if they'll ever do that because they've been just going so long without. But the fact that they finally did it, I am super excited, right? It was almost like one of those things too. I wake up in the morning and I saw an Austin Johns video on Fire Red Leaf Green. I was like, no way they did it. And so this is my final reason is tied to that re-release, because, and please Pokemon Company, if you're listening, I hope like maybe on a yearly basis, you could just give us a whole new re-release. Just let us download it, you know, 20, 30 bucks. You could even, I'll give you 30 bucks for all the re-releases each, you know? And I know that's a sore topic. Everyone's like, nah, it's worth 10. But even if you tried to buy an older system and re-buy the cartridges, other game stores I've noticed are still selling them for like $50, $60. So if Nintendo wants to cut those in half and, you know, kind of eliminate that resale market, because you could just get a Switch 2 and play every Pokemon game ever created. That would be my dream, right? Because I do believe that backwards compatibility will continue to be like this, especially like with the PlayStation 6 rumors. The PlayStation 5 hasn't had as many heavy hitting games as the PS4. So it was huge for the PlayStation 5 to inherit most of those core PS4 games. And I think that'll be true of the next PlayStation console, that it's just gonna have to have tremendous backwards compatibility, because without it, developers just don't have the resources and time to just churn these games out any faster. And I'm okay with that. I'm genuinely okay with waiting for wins and waves, because as long as we get a good experience, that's all that matters. Because as they say, suck is forever. Like, you know, Cyberpunk was really bad. Scarlet and Violet, that's kind of just what I think of when I think of that game, you know? And although Cyberpunk is a lot better now, and Scarlet Violet on the Switch 2 is a lot better, it still had those like that huge down moment, and those moments lasted for months and even years with Scarlet and Violet, where things just did not get better. And I know with Scarlet Violet it was system limitations, but nonetheless, you release a game on your console. This isn't a third-party company making a Switch game. This is, you know, Nintendo's one of their primary studios. making these games, I don't think there's much excuse for them to release a poor game, because you kind of know what your console can handle. But before I get off the rails, I do want to just round that out, that if we can get the re-releases on a yearly basis, at least, that would be incredible. And you know, they've already showed us that they can just easily port it over without even touching any of the mechanics of the game, which is fine. We don't need any resolution bumps. Us Pokemon fans don't need any like FPS bumps. Just give me that game at whatever, at 30 FPS, whatever it ran at, I'm cool with that. I don't even need the ratio on the screen to change either. And I know there are some dual screen Pokemon games that might be a little more challenging on the Switch 2. So if they didn't want to do that split screen thing that, like, you know, emulator would do, have like the little bottom menu be in the bottom corner and kind of the main display take up the main game, I think it'd be a cool opportunity for Nintendo to add a dual screen accessory. Like now with the Switch 2 having 2 ports, like you kind of get like a back railing system and just connect another small screen to the USB-C port. They definitely have the bandwidth with power and data that they can do that through those USB-C ports. So that'd be kind of a cool alternative to getting the DS games and the 3DS games on the Switch 2 without, again, having to like really dive into reporting them or, you know, making them more possible. And it does seem like an accessory that Nintendo would kind of like dive into, because it's very like Nintendo-y. Yeah, to turn your Switch 2 into a 3DS. Like I could totally see them kind of going that avenue, because then there are a ton of legendary 3DS games that we could kind of, and DS games that we could dive into again in that same form factor. And like, come on, you're not exactly pumping out games at record speed, so people would welcome like re-experiencing those games. There's a big reason why there's such a strong market for these retro consoles, is some of them are, for some of these games, the retro console is the only experience. But again, if Nintendo's able to port these over, then, you know, damn, that would like easily elevate the Switch 2 to the greatest Pokemon console of all time. But that's kind of it for today. I'm Carlos Ruiz. This has been 508 Tech. Leave a like and subscribe. And also in the comments, let me know what your favorite Pokemon game is of all time. I gotta dive into the Switch 2. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.